Are we good? Are we recording? Okay. Hey friends, I am Jill of Whispering Willow Farm. I am here this week finishing up a project that I have been working on with Bootstrap Farmer. Here's a new friend of mine, Cal, who has made all of these trays for us. And today we're just gonna sit down. It's gonna be kind of interview style. I'm gonna ask you what you're doing. I'm gonna kind of give them an idea of how these trays are now sitting in front of us today. Do you wanna kind of introduce yourself and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Cal. We're an injection molder. We do custom injection molding, so that means we run just about anything that's injection molded from any industry you could possibly think of. The only thing we don't really touch on is medical, but yeah, we've been running these trays for the last year or so. It's a new customer of ours, and everything's been going great. We're really excited for this project here with you, working with you directly.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, excited to see where it goes.
Thanks. Okay, so how did your relationship with Bootstrap Farmer merge to begin with? Like, how did you guys get started together?
Yeah, so I knew they were looking at reshoring, meaning bringing it back from China. A lot of that had to do with supply chain and being readily available to ship products quicker, and shorten their supply chain. And that goes from communications to any engineering resources that they need that were on hand. We're a phone call away. We're within 10 hours.
Yeah.
So we started discussions about, it's been about 2 years now. So it's a long process.
Yeah, it is.
Tool builds take anywhere from 4 to 6 months to get them in-house to start producing.
Wow.
So it's a long process. It's very technical. And the relationship that we've started with them has been absolutely fantastic. It's a perfect fit for what we do.
That's awesome. I'm excited you guys partnered because then I got to come in on this collaboration. So I've been in your factory, your business all week, really just kind of seeing how all of this is playing out, which has kind of been mind-blowing. Like, that is a world I am not accustomed to. I hang out with like vegetables and animals all day. So this is definitely new. And I would love it if you kind of just like walked through the whole process, start to finish, of what it took to make one of these trays.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in when you
It is.
And there's a lot of moving parts. Literally and figuratively. But yeah, so when they came to us, the first point was to figure out what material they were wanting to go with. So in the past, these trays are a lot of times you can have shatter issues, and I know that's really important for the longevity of the product. So we found a good material that's going to work for them, and it's going to last quite a bit longer. It's got a lot more impact resistance. So that's kind of where we started with this. And we're using a very good polypropylene in this product. So when you walked in, we kind of went through the raw materials. So those come in 1,500 pound boxes, and we run. There's a million different materials out there. So you kind of saw everything that we do as far on the raw material side. Yeah, there's a million different types of materials that we can choose. We ended up with a FDA food grade polypropylene for this product with very good impact resistance. So the longevity of the product is going to be fantastic. From there, we kind of walked you through to the machine and kind of showed you the feeding process into the color units. These colors take about 1% so it's about 1 gram per 454 grams of material in order to get a good solid color like this. And from there, we showed how it's fed into the machine, right into the screw and barrel where you mix, melt, and feeds right into the nozzle and right into the cavities of the mold.
Yeah, I thought that was so fascinating. I could have just sat there and watched it like being sucked up and then moving through all the nozzles and then it like compressed and made it, when it shot into the trays. I thought that was so fascinating. It's hard too when I see an end product like this, right? I never once think about what was involved to get this made. And so it was really, and so being able to go and see all the moving parts, I was really just fascinated by it all. And then having you explain all that to me was really cool.
Once the material is mixed in the barrel and it's injected through the nozzle, we refer to those as gates. And this is a really good representation because this is where we're actually transitioning colors. So we're transitioning from a white to a black here. And so you can really see where that material shoots into and how it flows throughout the entire tray. So this is one of my favorite parts actually we have, and I ended up giving it away to my friends at Bootstrap. It's really cool. It's really, it shows you a lot and how, like, this has 4 gates, right? So
okay.
Nobody would know that. They just see these little things on there and they sometimes think it's a defect.
Yeah.
It's actually how the part's designed, and this is really, really cool way to show people how it
yeah,
flows.
I think this is really cool too. I was kind of seeing that when my trays were getting made too. It was like those transition pieces going from one color to the other was some of my favorite, actually.
Which is really cool from Bootstrap. They asked us to do that. A lot of times what you have to do is purge. We call it purging the machine. And basically what you do there is take material that you're not going to use and throw it through the machine in order to get a solid color to cut down on scrap. Well, what Bootstrap has asked us to do is don't do that. They're very creative and thought, hey, these could look really cool. So when we do change colors, we have virtually 0 scrap, which is very uncommon.
Yeah, that's really cool. One thing you touched on earlier too that I wanted to ask is you said that it was all FDA food grade. Can you, because that is what I'm using these for. I'm using these on my farm to grow, vegetables in. And so can you kind of touch on that a bit more? Yeah.
So the material that we're using, it's, when we say polypropylene, it's a very wide range. It's a pretty vague term. But it is a very common material used in all industries. It's inherently FDA, so there's no leaching.
Gotcha.
You don't have anything that can come out of that part, and that's really important, especially when you're growing plants. Those plants will take up those nutrients or, in this case, maybe a bad chemical.
Yeah.
These will not leach. So
yeah, okay.
We get certifications on any lot that comes in that says, hey, this is FDA, this is where it came from, this is not reprocessed, so we know exactly what we're receiving every time.
Perfect. Okay, so I do want to kind of address something. So I know you don't really know me that well. We just met this week, but I have a big kind of environmental stand on our farm and what we do. Of course, we cannot reduce plastics, right? That's virtually impossible for many farmers. And so we kind of try to do the next best thing. We view it as good, better, best. And so I thought it was really cool because when we were walking through your factory, I see these boxes of, trays that weren't up to par. And so I had asked you what you did with that. And I'd love for you to just kind of explain that because for me, it's all about repurposing and reusing. And I think you guys do that really well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if we do have bad quality parts, we don't just throw them away. So we actually put those into a clean grinder. And they grind them up into small enough pellets or pieces that we can throw back into the machine. So we can only use those a certain amount of time and at a certain percentage. So we know we're still going to get a good quality part. If you use too much in a blend, you can reduce, the structural integrity or even the color a lot of times. So, so we throw that into a grinder and then we feed it right back into the products.
So how much waste do you think you guys average?
From a poundage standpoint, it's very little.
Yeah.
And I don't have a number off the top of my head, but it's less than 1% of the materials that we bring in the house every year.
That's amazing.
Around 5 million pounds.
Wow.
So, we try to be as efficient as possible. And sometimes, unfortunately, we do have times where we have to throw stuff away where it just can't be used. But it's very limited. And every year we get better.
Yeah.
It helps us from a profitability standpoint.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really appreciate when you said that too. It made me feel really good. We can reuse these trays. So I felt good about that. But knowing that you guys don't just discard it, you got to reuse it, I just thought was really awesome.
No, you're not seeing our stuff on the side. We do a really good job. And there are a lot of regulations out there of what we can do with the plastic. So if we do have to get rid of offload material or there's a lot of EPA regulations that we have to follow.
Good, okay.
If we don't, we're in big trouble.
Yeah,
so
you better follow them.
To a T.
Yeah. All right, so now that you've kind of hit on how the small plastics make their way up through the gate and they get to where they need to go to make the trays, what is kind of the next step in that process?
Yeah, so once the material's injected into the cavity.
That's the proper terms. Well done.
It's a proper term. Which, for instance, this is an 8-cavity tool. So eight products are being produced at one time. So we call it cycle. Once that material is injected into the gates, through the gates, into the cavities, the mold is, in this case, it's less than half a second. So it shoots it in there really fast. It holds, it cools, and that's to make sure that we're hitting dimensional stability. And then the machine opens, ejects the part, and we're very heavy in automation. So any part that we automate, taken out of the press.
Yeah.
And that helps our quality. So the robot will come down, pick the parts, take them up, and go set them on the belt. We're stacking these 10 high, and it takes about 30 minutes for the belt to fill up, where the operator comes by and takes the correct amount of stacks and puts them in a box ready to ship.
So how often are you changing out molds? Is that like one of those things that you'll put these in for the 2.5-inch pots and it's just what you're running all day? Or are you swapping between that and the 10-20 trays?
Yeah, we like to run about a week at a time whenever we can. So it's the mold hanging is very intensive. It can take anywhere between 2 hours for a small mold all the way up to half a day.
Wow.
So it's very time consuming. So we always try to marry up orders to be more efficient. Hanging a mold, every 2 hours, it's just not possible.
Yeah.
And we try to stay as lean as possible and keep good quality workers in our facility that can handle that, but we try to alleviate the stress off of them as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we walked into the molding floor, you saw a bunch of different sizes of machines.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some machines, the size of this table, and then there were machines the size of this room. So that's all, the rating is all based on tonnage per square inch. So we run anything from 150 tons all the way up to 720 tons.
Wow.
So we make these smaller pots at 220 tons. A part like this, because it's 2-cavity, it takes a lot more pressure to hold that mold closed.
And when you say 2-cavity, what does that mean?
That means there's 2 being produced at one time.
Okay.
8 for the pots.
I'm with you. Okay.
So it takes a lot more tonnage to hold this surface area closed. 720 tons is like putting a 747 jet on the nose. And where it's making contact with the ground is how much pressure is what that machine is providing to hold that mold.
Wow.
So pretty insane pressures there.
All right, so you've kind of walked me through, and you walked me through earlier the factory showing me this, which then got us the product. And we were kind of looking through some of these trays earlier too, and like you kept mentioning, oh, well, this isn't up to quality. And can you kind of talk about that? Because I know you guys are very specific about what you do, and you actually like put an operator on a particular project just for quality. So can you just kind of go in depth about that a little more?
Yeah, quality is it's our number 2 on the list is importance in the facility, number 1 being safety. And we take it very seriously. We do quality checks about every 2 hours. So,
wow.
We have our QC manager walking around and checking. And what I always tell people is, the parts tell a story, right? So if there's something going on with the machine, the parts are going to show that. So if we're not hitting the amount of products that we're producing within that 2 hour window, we need to go see what's going on. So if there are too many rejects, and our goal is less than 1.5% post-production, meaning getting to Bootstrap, who's our customer, and less than 2.5% in-house. So if we're above that threshold, then we isolate anything that's happened between that 2 hour window. We hold it aside, and then we do 100% check on every single part in there.
Wow.
To make sure, hey, where did this happen? What adjustments do we need to make to make sure that we're back in where we need to be to make good parts?
Yeah. So something else too that I wasn't expecting when I came into a factory, I was kind of semi-expecting, I guess, the big machines. Then you had taken, when we walked through back to like a warehouse, and you were like, that was a whole other operation within your business and what you're doing. And you're actually like boxing all these things up, you're shipping them out. Can you talk about that a little bit too? Because that kind of took me by surprise. It's like you have this whole business, then you have another business within that. What does that look like?
Yeah, so we're very inventory heavy, and that's for the sake of our customers. So when we have somebody call us up and say, hey, I really need this product, especially in times right now, the supply chains, everybody can speak to it right now. It doesn't matter if you're trying to buy something at the grocery store, if you're producing something like this, supply chains are a mess.
Yeah.
So what we've done is we've put ourselves in a position to have as much inventory as possible from a raw goods standpoint and a finished goods. So anytime Bootstrap calls us and says, hey, we really need this, there's a good chance that we've got it on the floor ready.
Yeah. Wow.
Ship. So our facility is just under 90,000 square feet, and about 25,000 square feet of that is strictly just warehouse. So
wow.
It's just under half the size of our actual manufacturing facility area.
That's crazy.
But again, a lot of people, and you'll hear people talk about manufacturers talk about lean and staying lean and just-in-time manufacturing, and we kind of go against the current there, because we'd much rather keep our customers happy and have a little bit more overhead and products on the floor that we're holding costs for than not be able to get somebody a part for there, because we'd much rather keep our customers happy and have a little bit more overhead and products on the floor that we're holding costs for than not be able to get somebody a part for 6-8 weeks right now. I've seen stuff out to 12 weeks just to get raw materials.
Wow.
So.
All right. So when someone like Nick with Bootstrap comes to you with this idea, how do you take that idea and turn it into molds that then are, products? What does that whole kind of start to finish process look like?
Yeah. So a lot of times, the customer will either have a prototype or a drawing, whether that's 3D or 2D, and they'll bring it to us. If they just have a prototype or a part, then we take that, we create a part on a 3D model. And from there, we make any adjustments, make sure that it's manufacturable. A lot of things that we look for is, can we get it out of the press? That's number one.
Okay.
We call that, if there's an undercut, there's steel between the plastic that we can't get out. We look at that. We look at dimensionally, can we hold what they're wanting? So thickness becomes a very important aspect of that. If a part's too thick, then we ask, hey, where can we reduce this? Not only does it make a better, stronger part, a lot of times, we're also saving costs. So once we have that all dialed in, then we take it to our tool builders. So we've got a tooling engineer in-house that does all of our design. He works directly with the tool maker to start looking at how we're going to, one, how much is it going to cost, and two, what's the best way to make this tool, one, from a cost perspective, and two, from a functionality standpoint. And then from there, once everybody agrees on everything, we start cutting. It takes anywhere between 4 months to 8 months, depending on the size of the tool.
Wow.
And recently, we've been fortunate enough to build quite a few of these guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. So obviously you kind of touched on this earlier. There are a lot of supply chain issues. That is something we've been dealing with for the last couple years now. So from a manufacturing standpoint, what are you guys doing as far as precautions? What is it that you're telling your customers, like making sure that we have enough product to buy? And are you, I don't want to say fearful, but is it kind of a push like, hey, if you're going to get it now, we might not have access to these materials to be making more of them in the future?
Yeah. So the biggest thing for us is getting forecasts from our customers, and you can't really rely on those all the time. It's their best guess, right? Yeah. So we position ourselves from a raw goods standpoint to buy a lot direct. We've got an individual in house that spent 30 years buying materials. Wow. So we've got a lot of sources in order to to be able to pick and choose where and at what cost. However, we're not immune to some of these supply chain issues going on. So we do our best, and sometimes that's enough, and sometimes we fall just a bit short. But so far, we're doing a pretty good job of it.
Yeah.
But stuff that took 2 days to get a year and a half ago is now taking 6 weeks. So, I wish I had the crystal ball to tell you that everything's going to smooth out and be great. I'm loving seeing the shift back to the United States. I think we're getting better quality products out there, and I think that people are really enjoying the ability to work a lot more closely with their suppliers.
Yeah.
So I think good times are ahead.
At the end of the day, though, if we get it while you can get it, because you can't promise that it's not going to change from a 2-day to a 6-week thing.
Yeah, I wish I had that crystal ball.
I know. That's why I'd always just rather have more, and I don't have to worry about it. And if something happens, then I'm good. I've got all my trays, I've got my seeds, I've got all the things set up.
We love that mentality. So
yeah, I'm sure you do. Well, thanks for sitting down and talking with me. Thanks for letting me come to your factory and seeing my trays get made. I was, talking with Nick about this. This was just like a dream come true, and I really had no idea just all the emotions that were going to take place until I walked in there and really started to see all the moving parts and see that dream at that point become reality. So thank you for walking me through the factory, showing me, and obviously giving an incredible product. I appreciate it so much.
Absolutely. It was an absolute pleasure to have you there, and you're always welcome anytime. We have an open door policy, so
you're going to bring coffee, right? All right. Well, thanks you guys. We'll talk to you soon.